All right, guys. So in the wake of the New York City subway terrorist attack that allegedly was done by black nationalist Mr. Frank James, New York City Mayor Eric Adams is facing some criticism as there's been a rise in crime in New York City under his watch. Ever since he's taken over as mayor, there's been a 40% spike in violent crime within the city. Now, this is embarrassing for Eric Adams because he ran on a tough on crime, right, pro law enforcement platform. His whole thing is that, hey, I'm a former New York City Police Department officer, and I know how to clean up crime. Okay, I'm gonna clean it up. That was his whole thing. Okay, and at some points during his campaign, the guy sounded pretty reasonable, right? I thought he may have a bright future. However, when he actually became mayor, it seems like he switched up and he showed himself to be the progressive that he actually really is, okay, on multiple fronts. But he doesn't really seem to be as tough on crime as advertised, okay, in which he's, again, facing criticism for. Now, he was asked about this during a recent interview, and when asked about crime spiking in the city under his watch, Eric Adams actually takes a shot at Black Lives Matter, and he says some things that people like me and other black conservatives get criticized a lot for saying. Take a look.
As the NYPD was searching for the suspect in the subway shooting yesterday, there were more than a dozen shootings in the city last night. And not to mention the shootings that we've seen recently of young, innocent people, some older as well, being shot on the streets of New York. How do you get a handle on this crime in this city, Mr. Mayor?
By being consistent with our message. Here's my question that I put out to the city. Hey, I thought Black Lives Matter. Where are all those who stated Black Lives Matter? Then go do an analysis of who was killed or shot last night. I was up all night speaking to my commanders in the Bronx, in Brooklyn. The victims were Black. Many of the shooters were Black. So I asked the question that was asking me when I was a child. It's 10 a.m., 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Why are 16, 17, and 18-year-olds out in our streets armed with guns 12, 1 o'clock at night? When are we going to start asking these serious questions? If Black Lives Matters, then the thousands of people I saw on the street when Floyd was murdered should be on the street right now stating that the lives of these Black children that are dying every night matters. We can't be hypocrites.
All right, guys. So what he's saying there, that's coon talk, right? That's coon talk, according to a lot of people on the left, right? A lot of black people on the left will hear what this man said and say he's a sellout. He's a Tom for saying what he's saying. Now, to be honest with you, what he's saying is a deflection from the actual question of why in the world is crime spiking so much and his responsibility in regards to why that is happening. Okay, it's a deflection. But he's right, okay? What he's saying is literally what black conservatives say all the time about personal responsibility, okay? He's blaming the people in the community, right? The same people that claim they love Black lives, right? Black lives matter, blah, blah, blah. We protest this and the other. When it comes to a Black life lost at the hands of a white police officer, okay? But when it comes to the Black lives that are taken by other black people, crickets. You ain't got nothing to say about that, right? No snitching, dog. Don't want to talk to the police. Don't want to say nothing. Don't want to do anything. They don't care about the young kid, the young boy that got shot, right? They got killed. They don't care about that. Or the little girl that got killed in a drive-by or whatever. They don't care. And then he also blames the parents, right? He blames parents for letting 16, 17-year-olds be out on the street at night, okay, at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, with guns and weapons, right? Living that gangbanging lifestyle. Eric Adams is talking like a conservative, okay, in regards to personal responsibility. Even though he's doing that as a deflection from the fact that he's not living up to his promises, that doesn't make what he's saying incorrect. It's correct, okay, because he's right. These people only show up when a black person is being killed at the hands of a white police officer. Like this recent situation out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, involving Mr. Patrick Lyoya, who was shot and killed by a white police officer. Now, if you guys aren't aware of this situation right here, this is what could potentially be the next George Floyd. However, it doesn't look like it's going to get to that point because maybe these people are fatigued from all this stuff. But for those of you who don't know about what happened in this situation, I'm not going to show the video, okay, because YouTube is probably not going to like it. But I will show some images here and tell you guys the gist of what happened. Basically, Mr. Patrick Lyoya was pulled over during a traffic stop because he was driving with a license plate that didn't match the vehicle. Okay, now he gets out the car immediately after being stopped, and the police officer's like, yo, like, stay in the car, right? Stay in the car. The police officer tries to basically confront Mr. Lyoya, and at that point, Lyoya basically tries to run away and fight the police officer. That's what happens. Okay, and the police officer chases the suspect, chases him down, and at that point, the suspect tries to grab the police officer's taser. Okay, now, allegedly, he actually got possession of the taser, and the police officer told him to drop the taser, however he did it. And at that point, the police officer then fatally shot and killed the suspect while the suspect was face down. Okay, now, in a situation like that, if you watch the video, if you see everything that happened, I think a reasonable person would say, well, you know, it's unfortunate that this guy lost his life. However, I mean, he had plenty of opportunities to save his life by simply not resisting arrest, right? By not running away, not trying to fight the officer, not trying to grab the officer's taser. He had plenty of chances to save his life, right? He lost his life because of the actions that he chose to take during that confrontation with that police officer over what was a routine traffic stop, something that he probably, I don't know, would have got a ticket over. Who knows? Maybe he was wanted. He does have a long criminal history that I'm not really going to get into because I don't think it's necessarily relevant. But I'm just saying, it's unfortunate. Ideally, you don't want to see stuff like that happen. But I think ultimately what happened was justified. So with that being said, all those facts don't matter because people like Ben Crump and the ambulance chasers are already on the case.
We're not going to let them sweep it under the rug. The family hired me to make sure this matter is not swept under the rug.
Nearly 1 week after the killing of 26-year-old Patrick Lyoya, National Civil Rights Attorney Ben Crump is on the case.
Justice for Patrick.
Justice for Patrick.
Lyoya was shot and killed by a Grand Rapids police officer during a traffic stop on Monday. Family who have seen dash cam video say Lyoya was unarmed and shot in the back of the head.
This young man was killed unjustly and unnecessarily when he had already conceded. He was face down.
And unsurprisingly, BLM is back and they showed up to protest this shooting of this unarmed black man. Take a look. Yeah, so here we go again. Right now, will this be George Floyd? Probably not. And I think the reason why is because reasonable people who actually see the body cam footage and know all the details of the story, know the situation that the officer was in, can say, hey, you know what? Yeah, that was unfortunate. And ideally, you don't want to see an officer do that. But I think I can understand why he did that in that situation. Okay, I mean, the guy was not complying and he had multiple chances to simply give up and stop, and he never did until he was unfortunately shot and killed. Okay, I mean, that's just what it is, right? But again, these people and people like, you know, Ben Crump, who's gonna make probably millions off this, they don't really care, right? They simply don't care because this is something to be outraged about, right? You can push the race card, and again, you can make some money, right? So why not play this up, even though the facts suggest that this was probably justified? And this is exactly what Eric Adams was talking about. These people will show up for an incident like this because there's something to be gained out of it, right? You can virtue signal and protest against racism and make money off of this. What you can't protest against racism about and make money off of is black folks killing other black folks, right? You know what black people actually should be concerned about? It's not white cops, okay? It really is other black people, particularly black men, is what black people should be worried about. Oh, no. We don't need to protest over that, okay? Ben Crump does not need to show up over that, even though that is the cause of most black lives being lost in this country. But hey, Black Lives Matter though. Black Lives Matter, right? But, you know, Eric Adams is learning, like, you know, a lot of people have learned, people who were paying attention to this the whole time, that only some Black Lives Matter, right? Matter of fact, only a minimum amount of Black Lives Matter. Only the ones that are killed at the hands of a white police officer and or a white person. And preferably they have a long criminal record to go on top of it, right? Those are the only ones, which are very minimal, right? Very minimal compared to the totality of the black lives that are lost every single year in these violent and poverty-stricken black communities across the country that nobody seems to care about. Nobody's protesting in those communities saying, let's stop the violence. This stuff has to stop. Okay, we're tired of losing black lives. No, right? They don't care about that. Again, Eric Adams here, his answer was a deflection from the fact that he's not really living up to his responsibility in terms of trying to fix the crime in New York City. But his answer, his deflection, nonetheless was correct in terms of what he was saying, the substance of it. Because a lot of crime that is happening in these neighborhoods does come down to personal responsibility, right? The people in those communities and how they're raising their children, okay? They're letting these kids get exposed to this stuff and to get involved in things that ultimately end up with them losing their lives, right? And if people were protesting this stuff in these neighborhoods the same way they protest a black criminal being killed by a police officer, yeah, that probably would stop some of the violence, right? If they start snitching, okay, and ratting out some of these people that are committing these acts of violence, that probably would help fix some of the violent crime that's going on in these neighborhoods. And to answer this question of where's Black Lives Matter, well, it's clear. They're ambulance chasing black criminals that get killed at the hands of white police officers, and they're buying large mansions, right? That's where they're at, okay? That's where they're at. So if you want to know what Black Lives Matter at, there's your answer. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.